Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show. This is episode number 50. Thank you for tuning into this milestone episode. We have a great show for you. This week, we are going to be talking about Super Bowl 60 between the Seahawks and the Patriots. We were marked safe from having Drake May is the next Tom Brady conversations. Shout out to the Seahawks for winning their second Super Bowl in franchise history and getting revenge after that Malcolm Butler interception many years ago. But we're going to break down this game. We're also going to talk about the Super Bowl halftime shows because there was multiple halftime shows. One good, one bad. You can probably figure out which one was good and which one was bad. And we're also going to be talking about the Olympics. The U.S. women's hockey team has been running roughshod out there in Milano Cortina in the preliminary round. We'll talk about their games, and we're also going to be talking about some Mets news because now that the Super Bowl is over, that means football season is over and baseball season is now upon us. And we have some pretty big, New York Mets news. But we are going to start off by talking about Super Bowl 60. And this was a blowout. I'm not even going to lie to you. This wasn't even that great of a game. For those of you who aren't football fans and are tuning in to just watch the commercials and the halftime show, and you have to put up with 3 hours of football, I apologize because this wasn't the one that was going to get you into this sport. Relatively close on the scoreboard, 29-13, but this was an absolute dominating performance by the Seattle Seahawks and their defense. They sacked Drake May 6 times in this game, and the Patriots were never in this game. Even though that the Seahawks weren't exactly running away with it, New England just never was able to muster up anything offensively, and that Seattle Seahawks defense stifled them at every single opportunity that they had. And of course, with the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl, that now means that Sam Darnold is a Super Bowl champion. He went 19 of 38 for 232 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. The Super Bowl MVP ended up going to Kenneth Walker, who had 27 carries for 135 yards, didn't have a touchdown, did run for a touchdown, but unfortunately it was called back due to a holding penalty. So that sucks for him. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to score in the Super Bowl, but he was a large reason why the Seahawks were able to dominate this game so much on both sides of the ball because they were just able to run the ball so efficiently. And we now live in a world where everyone's trying to spread their offense out. Everyone's trying to drop 30, 35 points a game. Everyone's looking for that new, young, offensive-minded head coach. And this Super Bowl was won by a young head coach. That was true. Mike McDonald, the third youngest head coach to win the Super Bowl. But it was one because the Seahawks were able to control the time clock. They were able to control the time of possession by running the ball efficiently, and Sam Darnold making the throws that he needed to in the moments that they needed him to make it. And he didn't have any interceptions or any turnovers, but there were some, obviously throws that he made that, fortunately for him, didn't affect the team. They didn't end up being interceptions. They should have been. But Sam Darnold was good enough in this game to win the Super Bowl. And I think that's really all that matters. There's going to be discussions, and it's already started. First Take is already out there ripping him and bashing him and saying about how there's so many other quarterbacks in the NFC that they would take that could win a Super Bowl with this roster. And I think it's just a bunch of nonsense. And I especially saw a video from a Bills fan that said that Josh Allen would have won the Super Bowl against the Seahawks. I mean, if there's anyone in the NFL that can't talk crap, it is the Buffalo Bills. Because we talk about the Patriots, their easy schedule. Drake May is getting clowned on the internet, and he's now, instead of his nickname being Drake May, his nickname is now Drake the Schedule May, because everyone's saying that he was exposed in this game, and that the Patriots had an easy path to the Super Bowl. And look, it's gonna be. This was a really frustrating Super Bowl in terms of quarterbacks, because Sam Darnold isn't the best quarterback in the league, neither is Drake May, but they were both put in good positions and luck broke their way, and they ended up in the biggest game of their lives. Now, Sam Darnold lived up to the expectations and did play well, and Drake May didn't. Does this mean that Drake May is never going to win a Super Bowl? No. Does this mean that the moment is too big for him and he's overrated? No. I mean, he made the Super Bowl way quicker than anyone would have expected. Now, he had a lot of help along the way, but now he knows what it takes to win in the big moments and what not to do. And maybe this might be a flash in the pan, real quick, get there and never go back situation, but we don't know. And the narratives around Sam Darnold really bother me, because this man has been through so much. He got drafted in the top 10 in a loaded draft class in 2018 by the Jets. And you see guys like, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield get all this credit for what they do and coming up short. And Sam Darnold actually gets the job done and doesn't get anywhere near as much recognition and credit as he deserves. Sam Darnold has been really good these last couple of years, and he's been a large reason why his teams have been successful. And it's unfortunate with the world that we live in now, where everything's about getting clicks and getting, sound bites and getting these, viral moments, that everyone's willing to just rip down a man. But Sam Darnold deserved that Super Bowl ring. And it's a lot like Brock Purdy. Is Brock Purdy the greatest quarterback in the world? No, but this might be a sign. We saw, Brock Purdy do really well. We've seen Nick Foles win a Super Bowl not too long ago. We've seen these guys, Jalen Hurts, is, I would say, a top 10 quarterback. He's not an elite arm talent or anything, but he can win you a Super Bowl. He's won multiple. And no, he's won one. I'm sorry. He won one and he lost one. I apologize there. But he's good enough to win a Super Bowl. And then you have guys like Joe Burrow, who is an elite arm talent, but his offensive line lets him down a lot. And this could be a situation where the Raiders have the first pick with Fernando Mendoza. Are they going to take him? Yeah, obviously, but you're only as good as your supporting cast. The reason why Tom Brady won all those Super Bowls was not only because he was a great talent that was able to understand the defenses, read them, make quick throws, make quick decisions, really understood the game, but because he had great players around him. Football is a team sport. You want to surround your guys with great receivers and great linemen and a great running game and a great defense. You want your quarterback's job to be as easy and stress-free as possible. It's great if your quarterback is your best player on your team, but if he isn't, you can still have a lot of success in this league. And that's kind of why I shy away from the Jets having the number 2 pick of getting a quarterback right off the bat, because what does that do for this team? They have so many holes that, you know, just getting anybody at this point would help their team. Um, Now, I will say this. This was it's been such a great generational hate watch these last couple weeks. As a Patriots hater, of course, we had Bill Belichick not get into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, which Spygate, Deflategate, whatever your opinions on those matters are, Bill Belichick is a first ballot Hall of Famer in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I don't know why he's not in there. I don't care why he's not in there. The fact that he didn't get in on the first ballot, of course, as a Jets fan, is a huge win for us. And then Robert Kraft not getting in on the first ballot. Now, there's obviously more to that. He also has ties to Jeffrey Epstein, which no one really seems to care about anymore, which is wild to me because nothing's going to happen to that. Even if you end up being in the Epstein files, which, you know what, I am proud to say that I am not. You guys who have supported me since day one, you know that I am not in the Epstein files. So you guys can watch this program as ethically as you want to, because I have nothing to do with that. But he also had that massage parlor incident. So I think that, at least from what I'm seeing, the off the field issues are leading those guys to not be in the Hall of Fame, which means that if they're not in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, then that can't mean that Tom Brady's in there, because he was there during all of their shenanigans too. So if you're going to punish them, you got to punish him as well. So then you have those two guys not make the Hall of Fame. And then you have this performance from the Patriots. This was one of the worst performances I've ever seen from a team in the Super Bowl in a long time. The Patriots just looked outclassed, outmanaged in every single facet of the game. And shout out Sam Darnold. I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy that Sam Darnold got his ring. Drake May, I didn't like him because he went to North Carolina. I hate the Tar Heels. So I didn't like him when he was in college. Then he goes to the Patriots. And obviously, I'm not going to root for him then either. So I've never been a fan of Drake May. In this game, he did. The numbers are going to say he did decent. 27 of 43 for 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 2 interceptions. That one interception, there was a chance where the Patriots were coming back, and Drake May looked like he was finally figuring out the Seahawks defense, and then he literally throws what is the equivalent to an arm punt. And through that whole sequence, Chris Collinsworth was talking about how good Drake May has been throwing the ball. And then he throws an interception. And he's literally speechless. And this is a guy who will wax poetic about Patrick Mahomes every time he gets, whether or not Patrick Mahomes is even playing in the game. So the fact that Chris Collinsworth was even speechless is very funny. The thing is, obviously, the 43 passing attempts is not good. You want to stay between like 25 and 30. That's usually a pretty good ratio. When you start getting into the 40s and creeping up into the 50s, that just means that you're behind and you're trying to catch up with the other team because you're falling behind. So shout out to the Seattle Seahawks for getting this win and preventing the world from possibly another Patriots dynasty. It's easy for me to hate from outside the club when I can't even get in. But you know what? That's what we're resorting to so far. But that does it for this part of the Kevin Blekicki Show. We will be back after these messages. We are back with more of the Kevin Blekicki Show, and we are going to shift our focus from talking about Super Bowl 60 and the game, and we're going to shift our focus to talking about the halftime shows, because there was multiple. There was the Apple Music halftime show put on by the NFL that was headlined by Bad Bunny, and then there was the All-American halftime show that was put on by Turning Point USA that featured Kid Rock, Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and some other lady who I don't know. And to be honest, I've heard one Brantley Gilbert song. Obviously, I know who Kid Rock is. And the only reason why I remember Lee Brice's name is because he is going viral for all the wrong reasons because of his terrible performance at the halftime show. But I want to talk about Bad Bunny. So I'm not a fan of Bad Bunny. No, I don't mean that in a mean way. I just don't come across his music. I'm not familiar with his game. I know that he's very popular. I don't have anything against him particularly, but I just don't really listen to Spanish music. So I really wasn't familiar with any of his songs. I know his song "I Like It" that he did with Cardi B and J Balvin back in the day, but I just gun to my head, you asked me to name a Bad Bunny song, I couldn't do it. So this was not an act that I knew much about going into it. Unlike last year with Kendrick Lamar, I've been listening to him for over a decade. So I was familiar with Kendrick's music. But even though that I don't speak Spanish, I was pretty good in high school, and in school learning Spanish. I haven't really picked up the language recently. You didn't need to speak Spanish to understand what was going on. Those of the people who were like, they're not speaking Spanish, I don't know what the hell's going on. You could clearly tell what was going on because of the amazing set design. There was a lot of nods to Puerto Rican culture and history, and Bad Bunny spent a portion of the show shouting out all of the countries that are not just in North America, but South America and Central America. And it was a very unifying show. It was basically saying that we're all Americans. He put on a show for his country. He shouted out other countries as well. And it was a really great performance. Did I know the words that he was saying? No, but sometimes you don't even need to know what a person is saying in order to know how they're feeling. So I understood, even though that the language wasn't the same, I understand what Bad Bunny was trying to put out there. He also had a message on the giant screen in the end zone in English that said the only thing more powerful than hate is love. And he also had a football that said, together we are America. And that's when he was shouting out all the different countries. So it was a very peaceful and unifying message, and people who are getting outraged by it they're just losers, and a lot of them are racist losers too. And there's really no other way to go about it. And like the Turning Point USA halftime was absolutely horrible. Obviously I'm not their target demographic. I'm not their target audience. I despise Turning Point USA and all that they stand for. And they try and frame, it as, oh, we're just having discussions. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk was just trying to spew hateful rhetoric. But anyway, I digress. So we had the reason why I was talking about Lee Brice and remembering him is because he literally had a song that's like, I just want to drink my beer, drive my truck, wear my boots, and do all that. It was literally like if ChatGPT wrote a country song. It is literally word for word, bar for bar, what someone who is making fun of country music would say. There was a line in there about trans people for no reason. Trans people have nothing to do with you riding your truck and drinking beer. You can totally do that. And it was the song that totally encapsulates what a lot of the members of the Republican Party are, and it's just complaining about stuff that doesn't matter and blaming it on people that don't have an impact on it. Why are you bringing up trans people on a song about you trying to be country? Son, there is no one in this country that is preventing you from fishing, hunting, drinking beer, driving trucks, being country. There's no one stopping you from doing that. You're creating your own victim mentality. You're totally fine. And he was talking about, I just, I see stuff on the news that I don't want to see. Well, you know what? I see stuff on the news that I don't want to see either. I see members of ICE murdering American citizens in cold blood. I see a world where I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford a home. I see a world where kids go to school and don't know if they're going to be on the news for being gunned down because we don't have common sense gun laws. I don't like turning into the news and seeing a swimmer who came in 5th place blame trans people for why she didn't win a race. And I'm tired of people blaming the trans community for almost everything and blaming immigrants as well. So yeah, you don't like what you see on the news. I don't like what I see on the news either. Groceries are getting more expensive and life just overall sucks. And I've never been less patriotic in my life, except for when we talk about the Olympics, which we will do later on in the program. But there's a lot going on. There is some serious issues that we have in our country, and he somehow managed to make a song about being in this country and mentioned none of the actual problems, which is amazing. And then there was Kid Rock, who claims that he wasn't lip syncing, but he clearly was. The microphone was not pointed to his mouth, and yeah, the track behind him was still playing. And I get it. He's a man in his 50s jumping around on stage. I don't expect him to play, and sing every single word, but it would be nice if he did at least some of them. And the crazy part about this is that um a lot of the people who were saying that they were tuning off the Bad Bunny halftime show is because they couldn't understand what was happening. They couldn't understand the words. Meanwhile, Kid Rock and the song that he opened up with was literally called Bawataba. Bawataba. And it goes Bawataba, da banga dang, diggy, 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 said the boogie, said jump the boogie. Now, I'm not going to lie. It's a catchy song. It is gibberish, but don't say that you don't understand what Bad Bunny is saying and then listen to a song called Bawataba. Okay? Like it's just ridiculous. And the reactions to the halftime show, because what the conservatives were trying to tell everybody is how much they weren't going to watch this halftime show. And all those people that were saying that they weren't going to watch the halftime show ended up tweeting about it anyway. So they were watching, which is probably why Turning Point USA had such low viewership and the Super Bowl halftime show had so much more viewership. It was pretty bad, their reaction. I was very disappointed in Jake Paul because I expect the older white people to be, railing the show and to be saying all these buzzwords and stuff. But Jake Paul tweeting out, and this still being up, purposely tuning off the halftime show. Let's rally together and show big corporations they can't just do whatever they want without consequences. You are the benefit. Realize you have power. Turn off the halftime show. A fake American citizen who publicly hates America. I cannot support that. There are a couple things wrong with that. One, Bad Bunny is literally an American citizen because he is from Puerto Rico, which is a territory of America. Second of all, this is very rich coming from a man like Jake Paul, who literally moved to Puerto Rico so he could avoid paying taxes. So according to him, Jake Paul, who lives in Puerto Rico, speaks English, is a true American, but Bad Bunny isn't someone who was actually born there. And then he also said, if you don't like ICE, then you can't call 911 when you're in trouble. If you don't respect law enforcement agencies, then you shouldn't depend on them. That is also just stupid because ICE and the police don't have anything to do with each other. Probably the most racist one that I saw was from Laura Loomer, who said illegal aliens and Latin hookers twerking at the Super Bowl. Not a single white person or English translation at the Super Bowl. This isn't white enough for me. Can't even watch a Super Bowl anymore because immigrants have literally ruined everything. So not only is that racist, but it's also completely ignorant and literally wrong because Lady Frickin' Gaga also performed at the Super Bowl. So now she's just straight up lying. So I don't know if she didn't see the whole halftime show and tweeted that out before she saw the whole performance, or she saw the whole performance and she's just lying. But that is just like literally, she said in plain words, this isn't white enough for me. And like I said, when we call Republicans racist, everyone rolls their head and they say that we say it too much, but I don't think that we said it enough because they literally are telling us in 4K. And probably the one person that I thought was the biggest clown of all of them was a girl by the name of Amanda Vance. She's like this sports influencer. She does like sports betting and stuff. And she was at the Super Bowl. And I don't know if she paid money to be there or she had a brand deal where she was able to go. But she literally tweeted a video of her watching the TPUSA halftime show with earbuds in her ear while the halftime show was being played. That is the secondhand embarrassment that I got from that is genuinely insane because obviously she has her own phone. She's watching the video. So she had someone else record her do that. At that point, the NFL already has, maybe if she didn't pay for it, the brand's money. The NFL already got paid for you for you to be there. The show is going on. If you didn't want to see the show at all, go into the concession stand, hide in a corner, and then watch TPUSA on your phone. I just like her being racist wasn't bad enough. The thing that bothers me is her embarrassment. Like the embarrassment that I got from that video almost supersedes the racism in that. Like, come on, like, and her being so young, she's like in her early 20s, like, or mid 20s, whatever. I expect this type of behavior from the older boomers, but when it comes from people from the younger generation, it makes me a lot sadder because I feel like that we're better than this. Um, but that does it for that part of the program, talking about the Super Bowl. We're going to quickly wrap up by talking about the Olympics, and we have to talk about the U.S. women's hockey team. They just beat the crap out of Canada 5-0. They swept the preliminary round. They play Italy in the knockout round. They won all of their games. They scored at least 5 goals in all their games. They outscored their opponents 20-1, and they also held Canada scoreless for the first time in Olympics history. They'd never been shut out in the Olympics, so good for them. We love supporting women's sports as well as the United States as well. So good on them. If we look at the medal count right now, Norway is in first with 13 medals and 7 golds. Italy is number 2 with 13 golds, 13 total medals and 4 golds. And then the USA rounds out the top 3 with 12 medals. And we're going to finish this show by talking about Francisco Lindor because he recently got hurt and he's dealing with an injury, a hand injury that is going to keep him out anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. But I saw a doctor on Twitter that said it could be 3 to 4 months. And, everything on Twitter is true. But, the bad news, I mean, Francisco Lindor is the heart and soul of this Mets team. It's a hamate injury. I was trying to remember the name of it. It's a hamate injury. I literally never heard of it before. It's just like when David Wright had his spinal stenosis. Like, no one heard of it until David Wright got injured. But we're obviously going to miss him. He's going to miss all of spring training. Hopefully, they hope that he can be ready for opening day. But this is already an offseason that I was disappointed in, and I expect the Dodgers to just win everything from here until eternity. So it's not like my expectations for this season have changed at all with the Lindor injury, but I wish him nothing but the best. But that does it for this edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Kevin Blekicki, and we will see you again next week.